Hello, I'm Kathleen Shannon, and I am a co-founder, partner, and creative director at Braid Creative, a branding agency located in the Paseo district of Oklahoma City. Now, I am from Oklahoma City. I still consider it home, but currently I am working remote from home from the suburbs of Detroit, Michigan. I'm recording. So 10 years ago this summer, my sister and I started daydreaming about creating our own branding agency after working many years together in advertising. I quit about a year before she did, and I just started working as a freelance graphic designer from home. And I remember telling her, like, you know what? It's kind of nice, like the freedom to work on my own terms, to run my own thing. It has its challenges, but the water is nice, so jump on in. We started daydreaming about what it would be like to work together, and we made that dream a reality. And 10 years ago this fall, we started Braid Creative out of the dining room of my home. So this is to say I have been working from home in some iteration for the past decade. And I remember my very first day of working from home as a freelance graphic designer. I certainly had a dream of what it would be like. And by God, I was going to make that first day dream a reality. I made myself a French press coffee. I was journaling about my feelings, and I had bought a bunch of plants that I wanted to transfer into some really cute pots. And I had my little spade and my gardening gloves. Pro tip, if you're working from home, get yourself a few plants that you can't kill. And all of a sudden, my backyard didn't have a fence. This guy came around my driveway, and I was like living my dream, right? Spoiler alert, this is not a scary story, but maybe a little bit creepy. This guy comes around my backyard and kind of startled me, and he said he was with the city. And he was like, you need to paint your detached garage here because the paint is chipping. It was a total wet blanket on my freelancing dream. And in some ways, like, that kind of sums up what working for yourself from home can be like. Like, one minute you're living the dream with your coffee and your journaling and your plants, and then the next minute you're getting some sort of fine from the city. Also, side note, this guy, he was like, also, I have a side hustle of giving massages, and he said that my shoulders were off-centered and offered to straighten them out for me.
Loosen up. Loosen up.
All right, get out of here. You know, it's like one day you're just trying to do what you do. The next day you're getting a weird letter from the IRS or a weird fine from the city. You'll know what I'm talking about. Or if it's not that, it's dishes in the sink, or a kid needing help with homework, or someone asking you what's for dinner, or any other real life distraction that is decidedly not dreamy. But here is the truth. Working from home can absolutely be a dream, but you have to do the work to make it so. It requires focus, structure, boundaries, habits, and routines. And that is what I'm here to share with you today. So my branding agency has grown beyond me and my sister in my dining room. There are now 8 of us. We have a beautiful office space, which is its own kind of dreamy, also filled with plants. And we're working remote from all over the country. In 2020, working remote became a necessity as we were all navigating this global pandemic. And working from home also became mainstream. And the challenges that it poses became everyone's problem. I felt lucky that I had had some practice with this already. And the best part was I no longer had to explain what Zoom was to my clients. But even after things continue to evolve and maybe we're opening back up and working from our offices, I do think some sort of hybrid model is probably here to stay. Working from home is something that's now becoming a real legitimate option, and it's one that we're going to figure out together. So during our time together here today, I'm going to share what I've learned about working from home over the past decade. Before I started working for myself, I had this dream about what it would be like. The waking up in crisp white sheets to the sun and birds chirping. And I actually want you to go there with me for a minute. I want you to think about what your dream day working from home looks like for you. So, if it's available to you, that's what my yoga teacher always says. If it's available to you, I want you to close your eyes and visualize what your ideal workday looks like. What time are you waking up? What is your morning routine? When do you have meetings? And who are you talking to in these meetings? What is it that you're meeting about? How do you feel? When are you doing your most creative work? And what is that most creative work? Where are you? Use your senses. What does it look like? What does it smell like? What sounds are happening? And what are your work hours? When are you getting started? And when are you stopping? And how do you close out your workday? What are you doing whenever you're not at work? I want you to take the next week to implement just one item from your ideal day. Maybe it's what you're wearing. Maybe it's taking a break in the middle of the day to do some yoga. Maybe it's a morning routine habit or some journaling. Maybe it's like literally just lighting a candle before you get started for work. Or perhaps it's time blocking your meeting hours and time blocking out your deep work hours in a Google Calendar. But I want you to try it out. I want you to commit to integrating just one small thing into your day to make it a little bit more dreamy. So I was once working with a creative entrepreneur who was working for herself for about a year. And ever since she had started working from herself, she had this dream of going for a morning walk every morning before then sitting down in her garden and doing like an hour of writing. The walk was never happening. It just wasn't. And she was beating herself up for a year about never making this morning walk a reality. So we were working together and I was like, what if you just tried it for a week? Like, this doesn't have to be an everyday thing for the rest of your life. Just try it for a week. And she did for a week, got up, had her coffee, went for a walk, and then sat down to write. And what's interesting is that she learned that she actually hated her morning walk. So one of the things about your ideal day is that it's going to be a little bit of trial and error. You're going to try things on, things that maybe you think you should be doing, or things that you really actually desire, and you might find that you don't like them at all, or that it's not flowing into a rhythm of how you work. Or you might try one small thing for a week and see that it's not as disruptive as you thought it might be. It's not as hard to bring into your day as you might have imagined. The next thing I want to talk about is your job description. In my job, I wear a lot of hats. And many of my clients are multi-hyphenate entrepreneurs with a lot of different interests or skills or passions, or they're expert. I already know what I do, but they still have to wear many hats because they're also running a business. So they have to do a lot of different things to make it happen. Whenever we're branding our clients, we're always trying to boil it down to their positioning. Knowing and sharing what it is that you want to be doing all day will help you attract the right clients, but it will also help you find a tremendous amount of focus and fulfillment. So take out a sheet of paper, and then I want you to start writing down all the things that you love doing in your job or that you would love to be doing in your job. So this might look like working with your hands, sketching, creating, painting. It might look like writing, designing, collaborating, podcasting, meeting somebody over coffee. I want you to think about all of the things in your job that really give you energy or make you feel confident. Even if you don't love it, I've found recently, even stuff that I don't love, because even a dream job is a job, the things that make me feel confident and productive and like I know what I'm doing, I would definitely include those in this list of things that I love. Okay, so now I want you to try this. If you could only do one thing all day, every day, what would it be? I had to answer this question for myself whenever I was a young designer. And I remember I was working with my sister, as I mentioned, and she is not only a design background, but she is an incredible writer. So she does a lot of writing for our clients. And because she could do both, there was this expectation that maybe I could do both. And I always felt so bad for not being able to write for my clients. And eventually, I kind of went through a list of my job roles and duties and discovered that I really like doing graphic design. And to be able to take away writing, to be able to take that off my plate and to be able to focus on design, it made me find so much more focus in what it is that I'm doing and what I want to continue to cultivate and nurture. And even now, being a business owner in business for now a decade, it's easy to go from doing to managing. And one of the things I've been really intentional about at my job is not only dipping my toe into business development, but doing it in my way. So another thing that I love doing is podcasting. I had a podcast for 4 or 5 years called Being Boss, and I love doing that. For a while, if I could only do one thing every day, it would have been podcasting. So know that what you like doing and what you should be doing or what you think that your roles are, it can always bend. You can make it what you want to make it. Okay, great. So I want to make sure that we create space for the things that you don't like doing, because sometimes it's good to find focus by getting clear on what you don't want. So on another sheet of paper, I want you to write down everything that you do in a day or week. No detail is too small. And I want you to also include the things that don't give you a lot of energy or confidence or even feel like a drain. So that might include things like answering emails, coordinating projects with vendors, answering client calls, billing and invoicing, and all of the bookkeeping. It could be scheduling or production work. Write down all of the different little things that you do. And now answer me this. If you could stop doing one thing, what would it be? And this could also be a big thing, like my copywriting example. If you could stop doing one thing, big or small, what would that be? So now that you have a little bit more clarity around what you love doing or want to be doing more of, and a little bit more clarity around what you're actually doing and what you don't want to be doing at all anymore, I want you to use this information to give yourself a job title. And this, for me, feels especially tricky. It might be creative or it might be really straightforward. And then I want you to write one sentence that describes that job with more specificity. It could even be like what you really love about your job. So for example, for me, it is, I'm a partner and creative director at Braid Creative. I love connecting with our clients by creating content like podcasts, blogs, social media posts, and designing brand platforms. So I snuck a few things in there that I really love doing, but I still have this job title and I'm clear on what it is that I do and don't do, with room for growth or changing or evolving, which we all need a little bit of. But getting really clear on what I like doing and what I'm really best at, and being able to articulate that not only to my clients, but to my business partners and my team members, it means that I get to do more of what I love. And I get to delegate out the things that I'm not so great at, that is someone else's core genius and that they love doing. And I get to attract the right kinds of clients and the right kind of work. And the same can be true for you. Does this mean that you won't ever have to do stuff that you don't like doing? No. Like I said, every job, even a dream job, is still a job. You're going to have to do things that you don't love doing. You're going to have hard conversations. You're going to have to clear out a full inbox. You're going to have to manage tricky clients, deal with letters from the IRS. It's all just a part of it. But all of that stuff is worth it when you feel like you're in control of your creativity. And knowing what you're best at and being able to articulate it will help you create boundaries around your creative work and even open new opportunities with your colleagues and clients. And this means that you can start to, hang up some of those hats that don't fit you quite as well and start wearing the ones that you really love. All right, so let's talk a little bit about boundaries.
Mommy, I want a snack.
Let's chat a little bit about how you know if you need boundaries. So raise your hand if any of these sound familiar. You're working more hours than you want. You're not hitting deadlines and things are falling through the cracks. Your calendar is packed with meetings and there's no space to do the things that you love. You have no time for life outside of work. You're saying yes to things that you don't want to be doing. Or you're having to say no to things that you do want to do, like go on vacation. And then maybe overall you're just doing a lot of work that doesn't fulfill or satisfy you. Maybe you feel like an order taker rather than an expert. Do any of these sound familiar? If yes, you might need some boundaries. But boundaries can be elusive if you don't define them. So one thing that I like to think about is my boundaries as a garden. Listen, I love a metaphor. It's just how my brain works. And I think about my plot of land and how I only have so much space for the plants that I want. In fact, I want more plants than I have space for. So I have to prioritize. I have to pick what is it that I want to grow and cultivate and nurture. What will I prioritize watering and taking care of? And then also, along with this garden metaphor, you have to think about weeds and pests and invasive, plants that are trying to come in and take over. And the deer and rabbits, as cute as they are, they want to eat your stuff. So really, I think about boundaries as growing and protecting what it is that I want to grow and weeding out all of the stuff that doesn't belong. So go back to your job duties, those lists that I had you make, and you will be able to see what gives you life in your work, what you want to cultivate and grow, and then what drains you, what you could kind of almost think of as weeds or pests. Now, following up on that job description exercise, I want you to write an employee handbook for yourself. And even if you work for someone else, I still want you to do this because at the very least, it will help you understand what it is that you really want out of your work life. And so here's a few questions that you might answer to help create this employee handbook for yourself. How many hours a week are you expected to work? If you work extra, how are you being compensated? What are your work hours? What is your pay? What determines a pay raise? What are your self-employment benefits? This is the cool thing about working remote and working from home is that you can kind of make up what your added value is, what your bonus things are. So I like to think of them as self-employment benefits. Sometimes it's going to a movie in the middle of the day when we could do that sort of thing. Or on my breaks, getting up and taking a walk around the block. How much of your paycheck do you save? And how much of your paycheck do you donate and to where? What are your company or personal values and how do these values show up in your work? What is your dress code? How many weeks of vacation do you get per year? And more importantly, where are you going? What is your sick day policy? What does sick days look like for you? When you can create your own personal policies and rules, you start to become responsible for how you work. You create and prioritize your own expectations, and you're responsible to yourself rather than being reactive to what other people want from you. So many people are scared that whenever they create boundaries, it's going to make people like them less. It doesn't. It makes them respect you more. So maybe try just taking one line item from your employee handbook to try and start to implement now. So maybe it's adhering to your dress code, even if you're working from home and nobody is going to see you all day. Or maybe it's blocking off your vacation time for the year right now so that it doesn't pass you by. Or maybe it's just turning off the notifications on your phone so that you're not tempted to check your email after hours. Let's get down to brass tacks and talk about tackling your to-do list. It's really just all about getting your work done, getting paid, shutting down your laptop so that you can enjoy the freedom and flexibility that comes with not being in an office from 9 to 5 every day. So these tips and tricks won't necessarily work for everyone, but it's all about experimenting and finding what works for you. And I want to give you a few ideas to try. So first, time blocking. This is one of my favorite tactics for making sure that I'm getting everything done. Now, right now, the things that I time block are mostly my meetings, but sometimes during an especially busy time, I will block out work time, creative time, white space. Sometimes I'll even block out a whole day that says no meetings. I will also block out personal stuff. You know, one of the things that people ask is, how do you find time to do things like working out or cooking? I will literally time block it into my calendar. And here's the trick. I know that some people that work from home, I don't have this problem because I'm a bratty youngest child that doesn't care about dishes in the sink, but some people get distracted whenever their house is a mess. So maybe even time block 15 or 30 minutes in your day to do some housework if you feel like that's going to take away from you sitting down and being productive at your desk. So time blocking, personal and professional, I highly recommend it. Another thing that you can try with time blocking is literally in your Google Calendar or your paper planner is to create an ideal week. So earlier we were talking about your ideal day. What does an ideal week look like? If you were to block out every hour of every day, what are you assigning into those blocks of time? All right, next up is a to-do list, a good old-fashioned to-do list. There are lots of software out there that will help you manage your projects, and I'm not necessarily talking about that, but maybe. So even at Braid, as we've grown, we've tried adopting things like Asana or Trello for managing our workflow, but we have found that a combination of Google Calendar and a good old-fashioned to-do list literally as a Google Doc that we're all on is really helpful for seeing everyone's workflow and staying in touch with each other and staying on top of our own deadlines and tasks and to-dos. So just a good old-fashioned to-do list. Every morning we check in, we open our Google Doc and see what we have out for the day. If an email comes in and there's a new action item, it gets added to the to-do list. And there is no better feeling than crossing something off of your to-do list. So sometimes there's no item too small to put on there. Sometimes I will even put something that wasn't on there that I just finished on there just to cross it out. It gives you a great little dopamine hit. Now, as kind of a companion to your to-do list, I really love using the Postit Note method. That's what I call it. Whenever I'm feeling especially overwhelmed and really need to start to prioritize my day, I will take out a single Postit Note. Look, this one, it says taxes on it because that's something I really needed to do the other day amidst tax season. But I will take the number one thing that it is that I have to do that will make me feel incredibly productive and accomplished finishing. And I will put it on a Post-it note and put it on my computer. So it's out of the digital sphere and into the real world. No more than 3 things. Really, if you can get those small Post-it notes where you can only fit one thing on it, it's going to really help you prioritize what it is that you need to get done. And on that note, whenever I'm feeling a little bit scattered, I will do the one thing that's going to get me paid right now. So more recently, I had a bunch of different projects on my plate. I was designing some credit cards for a credit union. I was designing a summer reading guide for a podcasting client who has this huge magazine-sized opt-in. I was also designing a brand platform for a client. And all of these projects were in different phases, and all of them were kind of around the same deadline. So I just thought, which one can I wrap up now so that I can send out an invoice? Again, it's just really practical, but it's really helpful to prioritize and again, feel accomplished by finishing something. On that note too, for tackling your to-do list, if you are a creative entrepreneur or freelancer and you're struggling with knowing what to do in order to find clients or get more work, one of my mantras is just make $100 today. I know it sounds maybe a little bit silly, but what it really does is kickstart me into action, whether that's making an Instagram post or sending out a newsletter or following up with a potential client. If I can just make $100 today, it leads to more. So, and it's not like a huge overwhelming number. It's not like I need to make $1 million in a year, just $100 today. Okay, along with time blocking, one of my very favorite tactics for really sitting down and doing the work without distraction is to set a timer. And I like to work, I have found that I can work in 90-minute chunks and like deep, dedicated work. But sometimes as little as like 15 minutes is all that I have. And so what I will do is I will grab my phone and set the timer on it for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. I will establish an amount of time. I find that the shorter amount of time, the better. And I will see how much I can really get done in that 15 minutes. And it is so much more than you think. And if I want to keep going, great. Whenever the timer goes off, if I find that I'm in a flow state, but I've already kickstarted the process by committing to that 15 minutes, I can work for an hour or two and get some really good, deep creative work done. Another trick for tackling your to-do list is to co-work with a friend or a team member from your team. Now, this is one of the downfalls of working from home. Even if you're an introvert, I see you, I get you, but you have to interact with other people sometimes, and it really can help to find focus or to just feel like you have some of that camaraderie that you get in an office space. So sometimes I will even email or ping one of my designers and just say, hey, do you want to hop on Zoom and work together? And then we can share screens and bounce ideas off of each other. It doesn't always work if you're like in your super deep work or you're writing a book or something, but it can work really well whenever you're working on a project that you feel a little bit iffy about or that you're having a hard time getting started. It can offer you a certain amount of accountability and camaraderie and friendship and just some creative collaboration. I love co-working. So whether that is either in person at a coffee shop, if you feel good about doing that sort of thing, or if it is over Zoom, it's just a great way to get out of your own head and to be with someone else. And then the last thing with tackling your to-do list is I don't always want to get started. In fact, even today, getting started on this talk, I was like, okay, I gotta do this thing. But first, I must clean out my desk drawers, which I haven't done in a year. Like these drawers were stuffed with old paperwork and pencils that were broken and pens that were out of ink and random Postit notes. So I organized my desk drawers. And that is, kind of the fun thing about working from home is whenever you don't want to tackle your to-do list, you still feel like you need to be productive. So you're usually doing things that you might not otherwise get to. Now, I'm not saying that this is an excuse to go clean your house from top to bottom, but if you do, it's not a terrible side effect from procrastinating. So this is just to say that it's not always going to happen with ease, or even just giving you these tips and tricks doesn't mean that you're not going to be distracted. There are always going to be distractions. There's always going to be things that are calling your attention away from your work. But hopefully these tips and tricks do help you tackle your to-do list so that at the end of the day, whenever you are closing your computer, you can just be home. You're not going to be thinking about work. You can be with your family or with Netflix or out on a hike doing what it is that you love to do. All right, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope to see all of you in real life soon.